Lonnie Payne here with another pinball video for you. I got the display in my F-14 Tomcat go out, and so in looking for a new display, a friend told me about a company called Wolffpac Technologies, and I had not heard of this company, and so they offer kits, and so I decided to go ahead and buy one and try it out, and I'm going to do an unboxing and review. So we got it. Let's go get this thing together and see how it looks.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
All right, let's see what we got here. Assembly instructions. For full assembly instructions, go to the website. Alright, got some resistors. Got the plugs, capacitors, bunch of chips, some foam. I think that's for the mask for the LEDs. And I went ahead and got the orange. So we've got our display segments. You got the full alphanumeric for the top and then just the numbers for the bottom. Looks good. And last but not least, the circuit board. Looks pretty nice. Alright, went to the website, downloaded the instructions, and just my first initial look through. Very nice, got pictures, looks like a pretty thorough, easy to understand, so we'll see, but so far it looks pretty good. Use solid core, acid core, plumbing solder is not acceptable and will void the warranty. So make sure you use solder built for electronics. So I would go through the inventory of your parts. Alright, so you got two sides of the board. You got board with printing and the side without. The side with the printing on is where you put all the components on, and then you actually solder from the non-printed side. Alright, so I separated my chips out. And one thing you want to remember on the chips is they have a little, I don't know if you can see, they have a little notch on one side, and then the board has that notch on one side, so that's how you know which way you put the chip. Alright, we're going to start with the 74 HCT32, and it goes right here U4, and so what I normally do is before I put the chip in, it's a little bit easier to do this before all the legs are sticking out. Just put a little bit of flux just all over the little pads, and that'll help the soldering. Alright, so here's the chip. Like I said, there's a little indentation there, so we got to line it up with the little notch on the chip itself. And sometimes got to work it a little bit, make sure you don't bend any legs. And so make sure that all the legs get in each side, but you have a leg sticking through every hole there. And then it's a nice flat surface. You can lay it down and it'll hold it in. Solder all the little pads. Okay, take a look. Just make sure the first chip is done. So we'll follow the directions, install all the rest of the chips, and move on. All right, all the chips are installed. The one thing you want to make sure before you ever plug this thing in is that you clean the back of the board. We use flux, and there's a little bit of residue when you do that. And so it's a personal preference. You can clean after you do each solder. You can clean after you do the whole board. Since I did the chips, I'm going to go ahead and clean it off. And then I'm going to continue. Got some flux remover. It's just a spray. Just going to spray it on the board. And then I'm going to use a brush, a nylon brush, and scrub it. Spray some more, kind of flush it off. And then we'll continue with that. So I sprayed it, and I'm just going to work it. Just if you have too much flux on a board, when you plug it in, the current can actually travel on that flux and short some stuff out. I've seen some interesting stuff. We're just going to kind of get all that out, and then we're going to spray some more on there to flush that off. So you kind of see it's a nice, pretty clean connections now. And then we'll move on to the next component. All right, the next step is we're going to put the 23 resistors on there. So if you look at the board, you got R1 through R8, R9 through R15, and R16 through R23. So these little blue things are the resistors. And these, it doesn't matter which way you put them in. There's no backwards. So you just take a resistor, you bend it over 90 degrees, and then you stick one side in each of the holes. All right, so once it's up against the board, what you can do is you can take the wires or the leads and bend them out slightly, and that way when you turn the board upside down, it doesn't fall. And then just solder each one from this side of the board. And put just a little bit of flux on there. Like I said, you can do the whole line flux at once before you start this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to trim them off to 1/16 of an inch. So basically you want to go just above where you soldered. You don't want to actually cut into your solder mound, or that can weaken the connection a little bit. But you don't want the metal hanging on the other side of the board. It could get bent, touch something that's next to it. And so once you do that, we just do all 23 of those. And what you can do is you can put them all in there at one time and just go down the list and solder them and then cut them off, or you can do them one at a time. That's a personal preference, but I'll get the rest of those put in and then we'll continue. Okay, all 23 of the resistors are in and cleaned up on the back. And so now we're going to insert the capacitors. You got 7 of these, and basically they're going to go on the end of each chip. So it doesn't matter which way you put these in. Just put one through each of the holes here. Once again, I'll spread them out just a little bit to keep it right there. All right, now we're going to do the rest of those 7 capacitors. Okay, now we're going to do the bigger connectors, and they're all 3 the same size, but they each have a different pin missing, and the way they did the board was where the white mark is the pin that's supposed to be missing. So just make sure you get the right plug on the right holes there. So this plug goes here, this plug goes here, and then this plug goes here. And then the smaller one obviously is the only one with that number. So get all those installed and we'll continue. So these just push through. And they actually fit fairly tight. They're not going to fall out, but you want to make sure it's flush up against, kind of hold the plastic, because you can get it either leaning a little bit or actually too far in to where the plastic, so just kind of make sure that plastic is level. And the way you can do that, put a little flux on there. Of course, you got to be careful that you don't, not touching the metal, because you don't want to burn yourself. But as you're holding it, or if it's tight enough just sitting there, you can put one pin on, enough solder to make a connection, and then when that solder sets, then the plug will be tight, and then you can go do the rest of the pins and not have to worry about it moving. And these are actually trimmed right, so they don't need to be trimmed afterwards. But so now I got a nice solid connection, and we'll finish up all the other white connectors and then move on. The last connector is the little ribbon connector, and it's going to go up here, and so you put the small end of the pins into the board so the others stick up top. And same thing, you're going to want to have the black plastic flush against the board, so you just want to be able to hold it, and I'll usually hold it at one end, so the pins I'm soldering, these are the hot ones, and so usually it doesn't bother me down here. All right, I'll clean that connection up and we'll keep going. All right, that connection's all cleaned up, and one of the things you can do, and I do this quite a bit too, is you can use rubbing alcohol, and then no matter what I do, I use compressed air, once I'm cleaning it, it gets the board dry so I can continue working. A little bit more important on these ribbon cables, because the solder joints are so close together, you'll make sure you didn't bridge a joint or something, and so you always want to make it look, make sure you look at everything really good. We have 7-segment and 14-segment LEDs. All right, so the 14-segment LEDs are installed in the upper row positions 1 through 14, and then the segments are on the bottom, so don't get those mixed up. Make sure you install it with the comma down, and go ahead and install one. Take a look at everything, make sure it's all good, and then continue. So we'll take one 14-segment. All right, so commas down, and these are kind of loose, so you'll have to figure out some way to keep it in there. But yeah, I'll hold it tight, and then I'll get enough solder on the iron that I can just touch it to one of these pads, and it'll flow enough, just enough to hold it. I'm going to do it on the opposite corner, and then that should be enough. All right, so now we look at it. It's nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. Commas down. So now I'll finish up soldering that one. All right, so there's the first one. Everything looks good. And I will continue and put all the rest of the top row in, and then we'll look at the bottom row. Okay, top row done. Everything cleaned up on the back. Inspected with a magnifier. Make sure there was no bridging or anything or missing any pins. Everything looks good. So now we're going to continue on with the bottom row, which are the 7 segments. And same thing, install them with the comma down just like the top row. And then we'll continue. All right, everything's done. Back of the board's been rinsed off, dried, and so now that you're ready, you take the little plastic covers off of each LED light. That's where it comes with 4 bezels. They're solid when you get them, but there's some laser cut inserts. You pop those inserts out and then peel the backing off. And the stuff is sticky, so you want to make sure you get it right on using the cutout for the comma and just try and get everything centered before you touch anything. You push that in there. All right, and then do that for all 4 displays. All right, we have 1 completed display. Let's go plug it in and see it run. Good thing about these new LED displays is the high voltage display circuit on your power supply is no longer needed. So if you've blown it, or it doesn't matter, you can still use these displays. And if it does work, you don't need it, you can pull the fuse out. But let's go plug it in. All right, got the new display installed. So we're going to fire it up and hopefully all the magic smoke stays inside. All right. Now what we can do is just verify, as we'll go into test mode. And we'll do the display test. Just go through every single one, make sure everything looks good. All right. Pretty happy with that. So there you go. Display works. I like it. So there you go. The display is in, and my review for this kit is 2 thumbs up. I really liked it. It wasn't hard to put together. It does take some time. It took me a few hours. There's a lot of soldering involved, but it wasn't hard. If you don't have any experience soldering, my recommendation, before I ever worked on my first board, I just went to Radio Shack and bought this little Christmas tree that you plug into your cigarette lighter in your car. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and put this together. And if I can do this, then I'm going to go ahead and start messing with some circuit boards. And I was able to do it. So that gave me the confidence to work on it. Now, obviously, the quality of the tools you have will make a difference. I have a little soldering station that I can control the temperature and stuff. This wasn't really a soldering how-to, but the kit itself is great. I thought the quality was great. I thought the packing was very nice. I thought the instructions were great. I'm an old school paper guy, so I printed them out and was able to reference them without scrolling on a computer. I thought those were very well written. I like the pictures, they're very thorough. I thought the packing was good. So, you know, they do have other colors. I chose to stay with classic orange, but they do have other colors that you can pick from. But overall, I love the product. I'll definitely use it again if I need a display. And just a little disclaimer, I bought this with you know, full price and just thought I would do an honest review on it. I've never talked to the company, but I highly recommend them. I'll put the link in the description below. Leave me some comments. If you like what you see, like, subscribe. See you on the next one.